What is up, guys? Welcome back to CageChat MMA. We are here, of course, to talk about Bellator 291 back in Dublin. Almost the sort of home ground for Bellator at the moment. They've got so much Irish talent. Whenever they land in Dublin, their events are always top notch, feeling the best atmosphere. The Irish fans go mental. And we're back here with another one. Now, unfortunately, of course, we haven't got the likes of um, the Strabanimal, of course. James Gallagher, let's not forget. His name was just vacant from my mind then, but we remembered it. We haven't got James Gallagher, but we have got, of course, the welterweight title unification bout between Yaroslav Amosov and, of course, Logan Storley. Now, this is the rematch, of course. Let's not forget Amosov already having a win over Logan Storley, of course, 26-0. He's a professional with a perfect record at the moment. He's been fantastic, hasn't he, on his way up, and since he's been the Bellator champion. And of course, he's had a rough 12 months. Now, I never like to bring politics and into my sort of content or the videos or the social content we put out. We're quite neutral. But I think it's hard to overlook, especially for this bout, what Amosov has been doing. Of course, with the conflict in Ukraine, he has been on the battlefield. He has been defending his country. And, he's been putting in serious work. Of course, sport is secondary when it comes to things like that. And it'd be interesting to see where he's at right now. Of course, he's using, and from what I've seen on the media day, he's using that sort of feeling of it's just a fight, it's just this and that. He's almost had a realization that this is just competitive sport, it's not life, so to speak, because he's been to the extremities, on the battlefield in Ukraine defending his country. So it'd be interesting to see where he's at, because this is his first fight back, I believe. Of course, he was supposed to fight MVP last year. Of course, that fight got cancelled for obvious reasons. So he's not been in the cage for, 14 months now, 15 months now. And, how is that going to affect him? How's his training camp been? How's his mentality been going into this fight? Because it is a big fight. And there's no doubt that the past 12 months has put a toll on him. But clearly, he wants to step into the cage. Clearly, he wants to fight. And at 26-0, it's hard to overlook him and doubt him. But this is the first sort of, I guess, period that there's a question mark on Amosov. And, again, as I said, where is his head at? Because it's not a nice thing to be going through, is it? Well, more than that, I'm putting that in simple terms. But let's have a look at the tale of the tape. 26-0 against 14-1. Of course, Logan Storley is sole defeat against Amosov, so he will be looking to avenge his only defeat as a professional. Of course, 2-inch reach height advantage even for Amosov. He's got a 3.5-inch reach advantage, and of course, he's coming to his prime at 29 years of age. He's done so much and is still very young, and hasn't got a lot of miles on the clock. Albeit his last three fights have all been decisions. He has had a few finishes here and there. He has been to the decisions half the fights. He's got a decision win against Jacqueline Buckley, if you remember, who's now in the UFC, of course. He's beaten Neiman Gracie, he's beat Michael Page, live split decision. Logan Storley, this is, of course. So he's put a few good wins together for his rise through LFA and, of course, Bellator. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. Amosov, of course, 26-0. Of course, his most recent win was against Douglas Lima last year. Back in 2021, so 2 years ago now. Did get a split decision win against Logan Storley. He's able to withstand and go the distance and look very good doing so. From the fights I've seen, I'm not seeing him, gas out too much to be a problem that he gets into that fourth and fifth round again. Is he going to make it out of this, or is he going to crumble these last 10 minutes? He doesn't do that. He's strong, and he's got, again, I'd imagine with what he's been through in the last 5 months, that mentality is only strengthened when it comes to his sporting career. But it is a really, really interesting fight, and the fact that it's not in Dublin, of course, the Irish fans want to see a homegrown talent like Peter Queally or James Gallagher in the main event. But this is an interesting fight to see, and of course, both of them have motivation. Logan Storley wants to get the fight back, as we said, and get the win in his column and maybe set up a trilogy later on this year. And of course, Amosov, is fighting for more than just belts today. He's fighting for his country, he's fighting for his people. And, sometimes in this sport, It feels like sometimes nights are just meant to be. You did it with Habib Nurmagomedov against Justin Gaethje, Michael Bisping against Dan Henderson. Sometimes nights are just meant to be, and maybe this could be just meant to be Amosov's night. And at 26-0, he hasn't got any reasons to be fearing loss or things like that. He's been pretty much perfect all through his career. But yes, I'm going to go with Amosov to get the win. I'm going to go. I think it goes the distance because again, they went the distance the last time, and both of them do have tendencies to go the distance. They both have fantastic, gas tanks. Both of them are fantastic athletes and professionals. Obviously, Logan Storley has got a very strong wrestling background, which we saw in the fight against MVP. Let's not forget now, I thought MVP done enough to win that fight. Just on the pure basis, I didn't think Logan Storley done enough when he had the positions and the pressure in. Because if I remember, there was 4 or 5 takedowns, one in each round. That was pretty much push him up against the cage, sit on him, and land 1 or 2 strikes here or there. And MVP was doing a lot more. Even though he was set up against the cage, he was doing a lot more with his striking, and ultimately in the scoring criteria, strikes, and damage counts to more than position and ground control. So I do think MVP had won that fight, but Logan Storley got his hand raised, and he gets to fight for the undisputed title tonight, going in there as the interim welterweight champion. Let's not forget. Of course, he's fighting out of Killcliff also, but yeah, I do think Amosov gets the job done. Tonight goes to 27-0. And it'd be interesting to see what happens in the welterweight division. Of course, MVP is actually commentating tonight. I think he's got a fight coming up. Yeah, he's coming up against Goto Yamauchi. Pardon my pronunciation. But you'd imagine the winner of those would be fighting for the title next, I'd imagine. I can't think off the top of my head at welterweight who would be the direct next in line. So you'd have to wait to see one emerge from that fight. But again, I think Amosov gets the job done. And I'd still like to see Amosov versus MVP. In complete honesty. But yes, fantastic main event. Pedro Carvalho coming up against Jeremy Kennedy in the 145-pound division. Pedro Carvalho, he seems like a very nice guy, don't he? He seems like a fantastic person whenever I hear him speak, whenever he's in the octagon, if you follow his social posts, all very respectful, all very humble, but there's a confidence about him. And he's right to be confident at the moment. He picked up a fantastic win against Mads Burnell. Of course, he had a bit of a tough time with losing against Patricio Pitbull, JJ Wilson. He beat Daniel Vaicho after that, and then obviously lost to Piotr Nedzielski by split decision. He's been on the rough end of a couple of decisions, but he's back in the win column, and a win tonight against Jeremy Kennedy, who is of course coming off that win against Aaron Pico, with Aaron Pico dislocated his shoulder and was unable to continue after the first round. So this is a really big fight for the featherweight division, and maybe the winner tonight, if Carvalho wins, maybe he's next in line for a title. And of course, Patricio Pitbull obviously just recently defended his title against Adam Boric back in October of last year. So he's going to need a new challenge. Of course, he fought on the Rising card that he done on New Year's. But again, he's going to be wanting to defend his crown. And maybe a Pedro Carvalho win tonight would put him in line for that next. A Jeremy Kennedy win, of course, he is on a 2-fight win streak at the moment. So again, he's on a good amount of momentum. He wins against Pico and Sanchez, but I think maybe he'd want one more, perhaps. But again, you can see tonight being the winner, or the winner tonight being put into a featherweight title bout, probably in May or June, maybe July. Of course, Peter Queally. Everyone loves Peter Queally, don't they? Especially when he fights in Dublin. You've got Zombies by the Cranberries blaring out into the 3 Arena, one of the best walkout songs and atmospheres you could probably witness in MMA. And I wish and hope I can get to see it at least live once before he retires, because it's an absolutely phenomenal walkout and piece of art that is curated in the 3 Arena. And it will be bouncing again tonight, despite the result, despite the sort of downfall of Peter Queally at the moment. I feel rough calling it downfall because he's thought to be the best in the division in Benson Henderson of a tricky Pitbull, who's on the back of 2 losses. But, he's still a fantastic athlete and competitor at 38 years of age. The showstopper might be coming towards a stop within the next 2 years. But again, he needs to be like the Donald Cerrone, the Yoel Romero's, the cult heroes. He needs to be on those cards where you want to get up and bouncing and have that phenomenal feeling of seeing something special anytime he walks into the 3 Arena. Hopefully he's got another 2 years in him and he can fight 3 or 4 times. Whether he fights for the title, I'm not sure. But he said tonight if he wins, he wants to run it back with Tricky. Obviously, they're 1-1. So there is talk there about that. Both of them getting stoppages. One a doctor stoppage, one TKO win for Patricky. Of course, back in November of 2021. Of course, he had a fight cancelled with Kane Musa. I'd like to see that run back if both of them get wins. Well, maybe if Kane Musa wins and Peter Queally loses, of course, I think Bellator returns to Dublin in September, October. I'd be more than happy if they wanted to rebook that because, of course, there's a bit of a past there, especially with the cancellation. I think Kane Musa, was very proactive on social media, calling Peter Queally almost like a shithouse, saying he ducked or quit, etc. So I'd be definitely more than happy to see that fight rebooked and run back in the future, just purely for the Manchester versus Irish sort of narrative of that fight. But yes, big night for Peter Queally. He's up against Bryce Logan, who's 12-7. He's coming off a 3-fight loss. Scared at the moment, Mandel Nalo back in June, Mike Hamill and Georgi Parakinian. Other 3 losses. He hasn't won a fight since 2020 against Jacob Rosales back in LFA. So he's actually winless in Bellator at the moment. He did have a stint in 2018 against DeMarcus Jackson where he got a loss. Also got a loss to Grant Dawson, of course, UFC lightweight fighter. So yes, you'd be heavily favouring Peter Queally to get the job done tonight and getting that Irish crowd bouncing for that co-main event really. If Peter Queally was co-main event, it would be buzzing if he got a win and just set that atmosphere on fire. But you can definitely tell with Pedro Carvalho, within earshot of the title shot, why he's the co-main event. He's also got Sinead Kavanagh, coming up against Sinead Hardin. Of course, Kavanagh 8-5. Coming off that win against Leah McCourt, but she did bust her knee in that fight. A fight that Leah McCourt probably should have won, but she didn't quite have the experience or something was missing to get the job done. Because of course, if you remember, Kavanagh hobbling back to her corner in between round 1 and 2, if not definitely round 3, and you're thinking, later, kicks out that leg 1 or 2 more times, the fight's done. But Kavanagh bit down on the gum shield, found her heart, and took Leia down in the 3rd round and got the win. And it was one of the best fights. Of course, it was battle between 2 Irish superstars over there, and it showed where the sport is at in Ireland and Northern Ireland, and just how spectacular it is. And the Irish MMA has got fantastic. Yeah, I think Cage Warriors are going there 2 or 3 times. You've got PFL going there later this year, Bellator twice. Obviously McGregor, they're doing the Ultimate Fighter, so it's a good time to be an Irish MMA fan. And I believe they just had a good show in the World IMAF Awards as well, or IMAF competition that happened in Serbia recently. But the winner tonight might be fighting for a title. I don't know how I feel about that. Again, no disrespect to them. Chris Cyborg is in a bit of a league of their own. She's beaten Sinead Kavanagh already quite convincingly. This is another rematch. Janae Hardin got a winner. She beat Janae Hardin via doctor stoppage in round 1 back in 2018. Lost to Janae Hardin. Janae Hardin got a win on that night. So Sinead, of course, coming into tonight, looking to avenge that loss, and especially in Ireland in the Free Arena, again the crowd's gonna be on her side, and that's the beauty of this. When it's in Dublin, the crowd gets behind it. Their fighters, you don't see that much in America. You don't see, because of the size of the country and the nature. You don't see someone from LA getting a support from a New York or a Texas or an Alaska or somewhere like that, because it's so spread out and so diverse. You don't see that huge amounts of support, but when Bellator arrives in Dublin, it's beautiful. And the same happens in London and Paris and Manchester sometimes with Cage Warriors is a good buzz. But yeah, it's a fantastic time to be in Dublin when Bellator's in town. But yes, Janae Hardin, of course, coming off a record 2 losses against Leah McCourt and Diana Silva herself. So yeah, this is a big fight for both of them. If both of them want to be in title contention, they have to get the win tonight. But I do edge towards Sinead Kavanagh. I think she's got a little bit of level above, despite already having a loss against Janae Hardin. But again, it's her first fight back since the knee injury, so it'll be interesting to see how she has returned and where she's at right now. But yeah, I'm expecting a Sinead Kavanagh win. And that really sort of rounds out where Bellator 291 is at. Of course, they've got Kieran Clark on the card, Carl Moore, Charlie Wood against Mike Shipman, Norbert Noveni Jr. is on there, Brian Moore's fighting tonight, Richie Smullen, Dara Kelly. It's a real showcase of the Irish MMA and the talent the Irish Ireland has, and it's blossoming. The sport over there is blossoming. Some huge stars coming up. Obviously, in the UFC, you got Ian Gary and Cage Warriors, got Paul Hughes. Kenny Makarana won tonight, of course, in the prelims. So it's a fantastic time to be an Irish MMA fan. It's a island and a nation where, again, they hold you dear, and that's something to be respected. And something we need to see more in sport, especially in combat sport. Sometimes it can be a little bit divided, but yeah, I'm going to leave it there, guys. Do make sure to hit that subscribe button. Do make sure to follow us on social media at CageChat MMA across Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, etc. Enjoy the fights tonight. Of course, we've got a busy one tonight. Bellator, UFC. We've got Jake Paul versus Tommy Fury tomorrow. So do stay tuned, and I'll see you guys on the next one.